to put it on your childhood when you're born in America, one of the greatest places to be alive in the country, like ever, and one of the freest times ever to be alive, like there's just no excuse. There's none. So I wanted to start with maybe your story, if that's all right with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it on a few podcasts, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate it for the audience. So, when did you get into porn? I'm going to say corn for the
Porn.
purposes of the show, if that's all right.
Got it. Yeah. It was in 2005. I was 18 years old.
Okay. 2005, 18. And how long were you in the industry for? Do you want to talk about the conversion story? Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. I was in the industry for 7 years, and you want me to talk about as I got out, or like, do you want anything in between?
Yeah, I just want to hear it from start to finish. Like, how old were you when you started? How long did you do it? When did it end? How did it end?
Okay, so from 18 to about 25, 20, almost 26. And I honestly got into that industry just super broken and looking for love in all the wrong places. I had an encounter with God at like my 3.5 year mark. I had been using heroin and I couldn't get a hold of any, and was just like, I'm going to end my life if I don't get help. And my grandmother came and she picked me up, and I detoxed from her house, or at her house. And then my grandfather, who is remarried, had been going to church with his wife. And I asked if I could join them. Went to church, received Jesus as my Lord and Savior. Didn't really go back to church after that. Men were very much my weakness. And I got involved in a relationship with a guy that was a pimp. And then I got back into the industry for another 3.5 years. But I really started to read the Bible, and not with a deep understanding by any means. And I started to just kind of hear from God. And I remember one day feeling like I need to leave this guy. And I was just like, I don't know who I'm going to call. And I felt the impression of God tell me to call my mom. And I'm just like instantly like, I can't call her, and he's just like, humble yourself and call your mom. And so I did just that. And she came, picked me up. I got out of his house within, I don't know, a half hour or so. And then I went to go film what would become my very last porn scene. I brought my Bible on the airplane that day, and I'm reading Revelation chapter 2, verse 20 through 23. And I'm paraphrasing, but it says that I have this thing against you. You tolerate that woman named Jezebel. She leads my people into sexual immorality. I have given her time to repent. If she doesn't repent, I'll cast her and all who commit immorality into a sick bed along with her. And in that moment, I'm just like crying on the airplane, because it was kind of like the lights finally turned on in my life. I was obviously not a woman of conviction at that point in my life. And I feel just the grace of God come over me. And he's just like, Brittany, this is not the life that I have for you. The life that I have for you will overflow with so much love and peace and joy. And if you would quit this business today, I would bless your life like no man ever could. And I was broken, and that word just gave me so much hope that I quit the industry that day, and I started following Jesus after that.
Okay. So you said you were super broken and looking for love in all the wrong places when you started.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean, super broken?
I grew up in a very abusive household. I did not know my value or my worth. And then here's an industry that's not only promising money, but they feed you everything you want to hear. Like, oh, you're beautiful. We love you. All those words that I believe every child should hear as they're growing up in their household. And I started to hear those, and it was kind of like just this pull, and then this promise of, oh, you're going to be famous. And it was kind of like, well, if enough people know my name, then, maybe that will somehow make me hate myself less.
Well, and you were pretty famous, weren't you? I mean, I think I was pretty young when you were.
How old are you?
I'm 28. So
okay.
I'm assuming this was like 10 years ago, maybe?
I quit the industry 13 years ago.
13 years ago, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I would have known. But I mean, you were on Howard Stern. You did a bunch of like big shows. Is that true?
Yeah. Yep, I did Howard Stern a few times. Maxim Magazine named me their top 12 hottest porn stars. won awards and things like that. I mean, nothing that I'm proud of, but yeah, I experienced what I wanted to experience in that industry, but it still wasn't enough.
Okay. And you said you were in a super abusive household. Is that like physical abuse, verbal abuse? Like what kind
Both
of
and
Okay. And that was your mother or your father or both?
my mom.
Okay. You know, mothers are more likely to abuse children than fathers, but no one ever believes that stat.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, that was my experience. So
Yeah, most people's. Okay, so then we're going to move on to the relationship with a pimp. So you started dating a pimp and then you became like a prostitute?
I mean, yes, I was doing escorting before I met him. And then getting into a relationship with him, basically the difference was, I was working and he was taking my money.
Okay.
One of my most proudest moments.
Okay. So, like, so this is over the course of like 7 years, 8 years total?
7 years.
7 years, okay. And then you started to read the Bible and you started to hear from God. And then you started to go to church, but it sounds like you kind of slid back.
Mhm.
And
I
then
went
you
to church
continued.
once.
Oh, you went to church once, then you did more porn after, right?
No, then I got involved with the pimp. The pimp was actually a backslidden Christian, and I told him one day that I felt like I was just like demonically possessed, and he took me to church and I got baptized. I went to church a couple times with him. And then after that, I didn't really get active in church again until I left him.
Okay. So when you actually got back into the church, what were you doing then? Were you actually done with the porn the second time around?
Yeah, I was done. I was completely done with porn. I had to look for a job for months because I didn't have a resume. What do you write on your resume when you've done porn since you're 18?
Mhm.
There was a pretty big gap from my job at like 16, 17 to when I started applying. So, but I found a job. I started working as a receptionist, making $11.25 an hour. It was very humbling.
Mhm.
But my bank account was empty, but my heart was full because I started to really encounter the love of God.
As most of you know, I have been fighting on the front lines of the simp epidemic for years, but I need to tell you about a quiet weapon being ratcheted up against men that is rarely talked about. It's not just the relentless anti-masculinity propaganda and OnlyFans hoes causing the societal issues that we discuss on this show. Did you know that the average city's tap water contains trace pharmaceuticals and endocrine disruptors? This often includes estrogen from birth control. The average adult consumes a credit card worth of plastic every single week. That's 5 grams of plastic a week on average. So it's no wonder that the average male's testosterone is half of what the average was 50 years ago. Testosterone levels decline 1% a year, and without a course correction, we are headed towards extinction. No matter how based you are, you need to be naturally boosting your testosterone. My friends at Chalk, CHOQ.com, are on a mission to save mankind from extinction by boosting your vitality. Chalk's Male Vitality Stack contains premium and potent herbs clinically studied to naturally boost your testosterone levels, sperm count, and overall vitality. Just one of the many ingredients in the Male Vitality Stack was studied in double-blind human clinical trials to boost total testosterone 20% in 90 days. When you boost your testosterone, you'll have more mental clarity, you're more capable of making decisions and taking risks. Having high testosterone will also affect your pheromones, so women will find you more attractive subconsciously. Get the Chalk Male Vitality Stack right now on chalk.com. That's CHOQ.com. Use my name Pearl as your coupon code and you'll get 25% off site-wide on chalk.com. That's CHOQ.com. My name Pearl is the discount code. Okay. And that was when you met your husband after that?
I met my husband. We got married about 3 years after I became a Christian. So
Okay.
I had met him. He was the young adult pastor at our church, and he preached a message that literally changed my life. He was like, I have to tell he was like just speaking to the women in the audience. And he said, you need to know that one of the things he said is that if you don't like what you're attracting, change what you're promoting. When I heard that, it was kind of like, again, the lights went on. I'm like, oh, duh. Like, how obvious that I have been only attracting men that want me for my body because that's all that I promote. So I went home and like deleted all of my social media accounts that were attached to my former self. got rid of all provocative photos that were on my pages, and then I also deleted the account. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So how soon was it after that you began like doing what you're doing now, like the podcasting, I don't know, I'm assuming you seem like you would do I went to Catholic school and we would have like chastity speakers.
Mhm.
I don't know if you do something like that, but listening to some of your stuff, it sounds like you may have done something similar.
I mean, we've written a book on purity, but we kind of redefine purity because there's this like toxic purity culture in the church where it was just so much emphasis on like no, masturbating, no sex before marriage, no this, but it was like the focus was on the action versus the heart. So we redefine purity as it really is a heart issue. And yes, practicing celibacy is a part of it, but like the bigger issue is what's flowing from your heart.
Yeah, I disagree. I think purity is not having sex.
No, that's a huge part of it, but the word purity actually means to be undefiled. So there's many things that can defile your heart: gossip, being critical, lying, stealing. There's many things, but purity is definitely a part of it. But the word purity in itself is undefiled, not no sex before marriage.
Okay, so I'm listening to your story, and here's kind of the issue I get with like the born again hoe type of thing. I don't really feel like you guys take accountability for what you're doing, because when I hear you tell me your story back, you always seem to point the blame on being broken and being and the evil men.
No, I'm not saying there were evil men.
Yeah, I know, but when you say like, when you say like, oh, this happened because I had an abusive childhood, there's lots of people with abusive childhoods that don't do that.
That's true. I think
so it kind of takes away from it'd be like if Jeffrey Dahmer came out and said, oh, I murdered all these people because my mom was mean to me or my dad was mean to me. It takes a little bit away from the actual apology.
Yeah.
Right?
And
it makes it seem less sincere when, throughout the whole story, I never heard you say, hey, I was horny. I enjoyed having sex on camera, and I did it because I liked the attention. I didn't want to work. It was easy money, and it was wrong.
Yeah, well, there's a few layers. I hear what you're saying. I totally do. But brokenness doesn't take away from accountability. I own up to everything that I did. I made the decision to get into porn. I made the decision to date a pimp. I actually did say that men were my weakness. So that's me taking accountability. I was weak.
Not really. If you're saying men were the weakness, so you were the weakness. It was
they're like my kryptonite, right? Like
No, because there's many women where men are their kryptonite and they don't have sex on camera. It's like not a hard thing to avoid, right? It's pretty easy to not have sex on camera.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. But I would also say then it goes beyond just being horny, because if I was just horny, I wouldn't need a camera and producers and directors. I could have just done my thing and been, a part of hookup culture in college. It goes much deeper than that. It was the promise of fame. It was the, feeling like so empty inside that fame would have validated me. And that's truly what I believe.
It wasn't being empty. It wasn't being empty inside. It was attention seeking. You wanted attention.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wanted attention.
And you were willing to be greedy, and you were willing to embarrass all of your friends, all of your family to do it. And I do appreciate you coming back and saying it's wrong, but you have to understand, when I hear you talk about the story, it just doesn't seem sorry. When the way you're telling it, it's like you're the hero and the victim at the same time, when really it was just a selfish decision. And I don't lose sleep at night, right? It's not my life. But you have to understand, to the average person, they're going to hear this and they might not say it to your face. I'm probably one of the few people who will be honest about it, but they're just going to think you're full of shit because throughout the whole story, you're blaming everybody else.
I just think there's this whole movement of people saying that if you say anything about brokenness or anything about trauma, then that means that you're not taking accountability. But if you actually study the impact that parenting has on a child, whether to set them up for failure or success, then you would understand that
No, I'd say
parenting
that
does play a big difference.
I'd say that's bullshit because
It's
my
not.
my family, we've adopted kids from really bad situations, probably worse than yours, and they didn't make the same decisions you did. They
But what
didn't.
decisions
And
did they make?
they made good decisions. To be honest, they're good kids.
And they were adopted by what? By what was your family like?
Awesome.
Okay, so see, they had a redemption. They had a chance, they had a second chance. They were given a second chance. For me, I just
Yeah,
had to learn life the hard way.
that's such bullshit, Brittany. It's complete bullshit. To put it on your childhood when you're born in America, one of the greatest places to be alive in the country, like ever, and one of the freest times ever to be alive. Like, there's just no excuse. There's none. There's kids that had worse childhoods than yours that didn't make your choices. They
Right.
didn't.
And I
And
actually
instead
know
of
people like that.
and men, they don't get a get out of jail free card. They don't get to blame things on their trauma, on their brokenness. Like, to me, it's kind of bullshit. You
I
know,
don't I
I
don't
just
understand. So you're saying that women have the opportunity to blame things on brokenness, but men don't. Actually, Joshua Broome,
correct,
he's an
correct.
incredible man of God who was in the porn industry for 6 years. He talks about the fact that he had a fatherless home, and that played a big role in as to why
Yeah.
he
Well, I
wasn't
mean,
validated and
I
got into the
I
adult
would
industry.
say the men that do it, I also think it's bullshit as well. I do, but it's much more common for women to do it than men because in general, most people won't hear men out. They won't ask them why they did the bad thing.